Hi, everybody.
We're going to begin in song because that is how all Jewish programs should really begin. So I'm going to hand us over to the delightful voice of Jenny Asher, who is just going to set the mood a little for us as we just create some space for more people to get comfortable, get in the Zoom link with us, or just if you want to be watching this without participating, to open up your Facebook screens or watch us on YouTube. So over to Jenny Asher.
So this is a piece called Adonai Adonai. It's by Craig Taubman and it's new. And I've been working on it and I thought I would do a little bit of it for you in preparation of tonight's talk. Ooh, 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 Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum v'Chanun, Erech Apayim, V'Rav Chesed v'Emet, Nosei Chesed la'alafim, Nosei Avon v'Fesha, V'Chata v'Nakeh. Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum v'Hanun, Erech Apayim, V'Rav Chesed v'Emet, Nosei Chesed la'alafim, Nosei Avon v'Fesha, V'Chata v'Nakeh.
Toda Rabbah and Yesha Koach. What a beautiful tune. So everyone, welcome, welcome. I'm still pressing admit to the people who are Zooming in with us. It's so lovely and encouraging to see that many Adat Arielites and friends of Adat Ariel are here for this. For many months now, I know that race has been on a lot of people's minds, even more than usual, at the forefront of our news cycles, and has caused us to look inwards and also outwards, to re-examine our past, pay more attention to what is presently happening, and hope for a better future. Listening is always the first stage to understanding any issue, collecting evidence and stories, and sitting with all the nuances, with all that we learn, and then responding and acting and changing. I know that I've been digesting a heap of stories, but I also realized that so many of the voices that I've been seeing and hearing were the voices of strangers, things being forwarded to me, posts on my social media outlets, which is technically just hearsay. And that's problematic because there's a lot of distrust nowadays with all of our social media sources anyway. What's their agenda? What's their bias? Is it just there to stoke the fire, to fuel the tension? One of the things, therefore, that I've been really trying to seek out is to check in with the people I know, the people who I care about, so that I can hear their stories, because that's my duty. And as I said, I love them. So one of the people I approached was my friend, Jenny, who is a Jewish woman of color and an Adat Ariel integral person. You may recognize her from starring in the Naranana band. She plays violin and she lends her vocals as well to many of our songs. She has also taught in the Adat Ariel Day School music for 4 years, and she lives a stone's throw away from Adat Ariel. And we wanted to get together and have her tell us in her candid, authentic words what it's been like for her as a mixed Jew, so that we can just hear someone from our own community and therefore look to ourselves and say, are we doing enough? Are we responsible for inadvertently causing any discomfort? Is there anything that we can do to help out? So I'm going to pass this over to Jenny. I'm going to ask that we stay muted. After she has spoken, there will be the chance for questions. If you're someone who's shy and you just want to type the question in a chat, I can feed that to her and she'll probably be able to see it. If you're brave and want to star in our Zoom call, you're welcome to then take the stage. But what we'll do after with the questions is we'll stop the recording, because then that's just more of an informal, intimate conversation. So that it's more of a safe space. But for Jenny's story, we want to loudly and proudly say, tell us everything you can, my love. So over to Jenny Asher. I'm so excited. I want to acknowledge that it's probably just quite nerve-wracking sharing your truth with other people, some that you may know, but some that you might not know so well. So thank you in advance, Jenny. We love you. We adore you. Back over to you.
Thank you, Rabbi Yarkin. It's such a pleasure to speak to you today. As Rabbi Yarkin said, my name is Jenny Asher. I am a California native who went to college in the UK, and I moved back to California 6 years ago, and then I converted to Judaism. I am now a cantorial student, and I'm also a professional violinist and a Suzuki music teacher. I'm here to talk about race and the perspective that I have to offer, and it's scary. There are a couple of reasons for this. One is I'm afraid that my experiences could be dismissed as something other than what I think they were. Another is I'm nervous that I will offend or make you feel bad by not choosing my words carefully enough. I've realized that sometimes we are just in a unique position to speak. And it's that thought that led me to find my voice. I've always perceived that I'm seen as neither white nor black, instead of both, which would be truer. And as the daughter of a white mother with an entirely white family and a black father with an entirely black family, there were no family members to model mixed race for me. The message I received from being with my families was either this is how white people are or this is how black people are. And that really shaped my view of America. In preparation for this talk, I read Mara Gad's book, The Color of Love. She tells stories about being mixed, white and black, and Jewish by birth, and I encourage you to read it. She shares the pain of dating Ashkenazi boys, only to find they weren't comfortable with introducing her to their parents, and the realization that her aunt treated her demonstrably different than her white siblings. Her stories were really illuminating to me. They helped me frame my own experiences, which prepared me to share some stories with you today. I'm just gonna turn up my mic a little bit. I've struggled with my daughter not looking a lot like me, and many people comment on it. One comment was especially hurtful. We have a Jewish nanny that we love, and one day she told me that my daughter is so beautiful and that you can usually tell the kids that have black in them, but she doesn't look black. Her nose is perfect. Because I like her, and I don't think she was sharing any real dislike of black people, just a preference for looks. I've never told her how deeply her words cut. I remember a rabbi I'd never met who approached me after services at my home synagogue and asked me about my background. He told me he always watches to see if people bow at Aleinu, which I had, so he was curious. And this rabbi wasn't a regular part of our minyan, so he didn't know that I was a regular. He just knew that I wasn't white. I've had to explain to confused new friends at synagogue that when I refer to my husband, I am not, in fact, referring to the only other black person in the room whom I happen to be sitting next to. My husband is not black. When we first moved to Valley Village, we tried going to an Orthodox synagogue. The rabbi asked my husband Aaron about my background, and because I had converted conservative, the rabbi informed Aaron that he would not be allowed to have an aliyah if we stayed in their community because his community had certain rules. He knew his community would ask him about my background. Many years previous, before I was married, I was attending a modern Orthodox congregation in England, where I lived for almost a decade. And I invited two non-Jewish friends. One was white, South African, and the other was quite dark brown, Indian. The security there was not intense, but the guard that day decided to give them a very hard time and eventually turned them away for not knowing the Shema. It was really unusual for them to not turn up, so I surreptitiously went to call them. And my Indian friend was crying, explaining the situation and saying that they were on their way home. I promised them I would speak to the rabbi and begged them to try again next week. And they did. And eventually they converted and got remarried by that rabbi and remained in that community. It's my assumption that these situations do not happen when one looks like all the other people in the room. In the past couple of months, I've had several conversations with family members and friends who felt saying all lives matter is fair and useful, or were upset by the Confederate statues being defaced or torn down by rioters. And they felt comfortable openly sharing their feelings with me. And I realized that they don't see me as America does, as non-white. They see me more like they see themselves. Therefore, they expected me to share their perspective and were surprised when I had anything to say in contrast or that I was hurt. When I was growing up, the ideology behind not seeing color was encouraged. I heard it spoken as a recommendation for a person. He doesn't even see color, for example. It never sat well with me. Robin DiAngelo speaks about this concept in her book, White Fragility, and calls it colorblind racism. Dr. DiAngelo says that pretending not to notice color refuses the other's reality, while reinforcing one's own, keeping it insular and unchallenged. Seeing color allows us to acknowledge that people of a different race have a different experience in life than we do. On the flip side, I've found that drawing attention to differences, comments about my pretty skin tone, the unusual fact that my hairstyle is always changing, or questions if my daughter is mine because we are different colors, it's uncomfortable because it reveals to me that the speaker doesn't see me the same as themselves. And I actively seek the feeling of belonging because I don't feel it very often. I enjoy it so much when I have it, as one would a favorite dessert. It's a special thing. But I am guilty too. I ask curious questions that have no purpose other than to satisfy my curiosity and prove my assumptions correct. Is the new black person in synagogue a convert? Is the kid whose skin color that's different than her parents adopted? To attempt to avoid hurting someone unintentionally, I've started doing the following. When I feel like asking a curious question, I ask myself what the motivation of that question is. And then I ask my question out loud. Or I don't. I think it could be useful to allow ourselves positive reasons for asking personal questions, whatever those might be. Then we can allow ourselves the freedom to do so. And I think that's the next step for me. That's the end of my speech. If you want to continue this conversation privately, I welcome that. If you'd like to quote me, I welcome that too, but please send me an email at Jenny, Jenni, Marie, Marie, Asher, Asher, I know it's long, at gmail.com. Thank you for listening and thank you for being here.
Jenny, Asher, thank you so much for sharing that with us. We're giving you some hearts and some claps and things like that. I know that emojis don't actually come up on Facebook, but know that there are some round of applause and some hearts being thrown your way from the people who are joining you in Zoom. So yeah, I want to just publicly thank you again just for being you and for being helpful as well. Just the questioning our motivations when we ask those questions and trying to be aware of that difficult balance because we also don't want to erase the differences that there are. And at the same time, we don't want to point them out. It's a really tough place to be. And I love that you are just acknowledging that and challenging us to think, how can we be welcoming? How can we be authentic? What I'm going to do is open this up if other people want to question you further. And I'm going to just take us off the live streaming though. So I've posted on Facebook this Zoom link. So if you're just watching in the Facebook world and want to join us and continue this more informal conversation, feel free to do so. But just to kind of preserve that intimacy, I'm going to no longer live stream us. So everyone on Zoom, you're welcome.